Welcome to Moonlit Inc. BL, a BL story written under moonlight. Let's begin. Prologue. The day Wings answered before he could. Everyone said 12 was the most dangerous age. Not because children were reckless, but because their Astraforms were honest. Too honest. Shawn learned that lesson halfway up the oak tree in his family's backyard. Fingers burning, heart pounding, wings trembling violently behind him. Below, his birthday party bloomed like a living thing. Laughter spilled across the lawn. Plates clinked. Music played too loud. Balloons tugged against their strings as if they wanted to escape the sky just as badly as he did. 12 years old. 1 year too early. By 13, the elders said children underwent the binding, the moment when instinct finally bowed to will. When wings folded on command. When tails stilled. When claws retracted without blood or panic. Before that, Astraforms ruled emotion, not the other way around. Fear made them flare. Joy made them reveal themselves. And panic made them dangerous. Shawn's eagle wings shuddered again, golden feathers catching cruelly on bark and leaves. Stop, he begged silently. Please stop. They didn't listen. They never did when he was scared. I shouldn't have climbed this high, he whispered, voice shaking. I just wanted to see. He had wanted to see everything. The whole party. Everyone smiling because of him. Now all he could see was how far the ground was. Someone laughed below. Someone called his name casually, unaware. Shawn, his mother called. Cake's almost ready. His grip slipped. The bark tore his palm. No. His breath hitched, panic finally ripping free. I don't want to fall. His wings reacted instantly. They flared. Branches cracked. Leaves rained down. Gasps rippled through the party. This is what they warn you about, Shawn thought wildly. This is why they say hide your Astraform. This is why they say don't climb, don't fly, don't trust your instincts. The branch beneath his foot gave a sharp, fatal sound. Time slowed. The sky felt impossibly wide. Then, wind. A sudden, forceful rush of air that bent the grass below and sent balloons jerking violently at their strings. Someone screamed. Shawn felt it before he understood it. The pressure change, the deep rhythmic beat of wings that didn't belong to him. Shawn! The voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The branch snapped. Shawn fell. He screamed. And then, arms caught in midair. Not frantic, not unsure. Certain. Black wings burst open around them, vast and powerful, eclipsing the sky in a sweep of dark feathers. The impact never came. Only the strong jolt of momentum being absorbed redirected. The wings beat once. Then again, they hovered. Shawn sobbed into the stranger's chest, clutching fabric like it was the only thing anchoring him to the world. I've got you, the man said calmly, even as his wings worked hard to keep them aloft. You're safe. Safe. The words settled into Shawn's bones. They descended slowly, carefully, landing at the edge of the lawn, away from the frozen crowd. The moment Shawn's feet touched the ground, his knees buckled. The man knelt with him, one wing curving instinctively around his small body. A protective gesture so natural it spoke of long mastery. That was when Shawn noticed the wings properly. Vulture wings. Large, dark, controlled to the smallest feather. A fully bound Astraform. You're shaking, the man said quietly. That's normal. Shawn hiccuped. I couldn't stop them. I know. The man's voice softened. You're not bound yet. Bound. The word everyone waited for. The binding wasn't magic exactly. It was awareness, learning where instinct ended and choice began. Some people welcomed their Astraforms openly after it. Others hid them forever. But until then, children like Shawn were at the mercy of their own emotions. The man gently guided Shawn's wings inward, careful not to force them. Breathe, he instructed. Slow. Let them follow you. Shawn tried. The wings trembled, then slowly folded. A miracle. There, the man murmured. Good. Adults were rushing toward them now. His parents' voices broke through the fog. Stephen shouted Nick's name. Nick. That was his name. I'm Nick, the man said, as if reading Shawn's thoughts. I'm a friend of your brother. Shawn stared up at him, eyes wide. Nick's gaze met his, dark, steady, grounding. You flew, Shawn whispered. Nick gave a small smile. I did. I thought only birds fly like that, Shawn said. Not people. Nick chuckled softly. Astraforms don't care what people think is possible. Before standing, Nick ruffled Shawn's hair gently, the way someone did when they weren't afraid of closeness. Happy birthday, Nick said. Try to keep both feet on the ground today, all right? Shawn nodded mutely. Nick folded his wings away completely, so smoothly it was as if they had never existed, and stepped back into the crowd. But something had already changed. As Shawn watched him go, heart still racing, wings finally quiet. He didn't know the words for it yet. But years later, when love would hurt and longing would ache like something physical, this would be the moment he remembered. The day his Astraform failed him, and someone else's never did. Chapter 1. Wings You Learn to Hide. By the time Shawn learned how to hide his wings, he had already learned what it meant to be afraid of them. At 13, during the binding, everyone told him it would feel like freedom. They were wrong. It felt like restraint. Control came the way it always did in this world, quietly, painfully, and without ceremony. One moment his wings twitched when he laughed too hard or panicked too fast. The next, they waited. Still, obedient. Everyone clapped. Elders nodded in approval. Shawn smiled like he was supposed to, but something inside him mourned the loss of honesty. Now, at 22, Shawn stood in front of his bathroom mirror, shirt half-buttoned, wings folded tightly against his back. The muscles there ached faintly, the way they always did when he kept them hidden for too long. Too long, he thought, just like everything else. He adjusted the strap beneath his clothes that helped hold his Astraform close. Lightweight, discreet, designed for city life where exposed wings drew stares, questions, and sometimes fear. Some people liked being seen. Others learned quickly that visibility came with a price. Shawn belonged to the second group. Engineering textbooks were stacked neatly on his desk, pages dog-eared and annotated. Fourth year. Almost done. Almost independent. Almost free. The word tasted hollow. From the kitchen, he heard movement, quiet, deliberate. Nick. Shawn's chest tightened automatically, the way it always did when he was reminded he wasn't alone in this apartment. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. Get it together. Living with Nick had been logical, sensible. Their parents thought it was better to have one adult to look after Shawn. Shawn's health had never been strong, and Nick noticed things others didn't. Missed meals, late nights, fevers that crept in quietly. Nick never made a big deal out of it. He just took care of things. As Shawn stepped out into the kitchen, he saw Nick standing by the counter, sleeves rolled up, dark hair slightly damp from a shower. His wings were hidden, as they usually were. Only the faint outline of where they rested gave any hint of what lay beneath. Morning, Nick said, glancing up. Did you sleep well? Yeah, Shawn lied easily. Enough. Nick didn't comment. He rarely did, but his eyes lingered just long enough for Shawn to know he'd been seen through. That was the problem with Nick. He noticed. How's the wing strain? Nick asked casually, pouring coffee. Shawn paused. It's fine. Nick hummed, unconvinced. Astraforms weren't supposed to hurt once bound. That was what the book said, what the instructors insisted. But wings weren't meant to be folded away forever, especially not ones built for the sky. Classes today? Nick asked. Yeah. Lab, then a project meeting. Nick nodded. Eat before you go. It wasn't a request. Shawn obeyed, because he always did. As he ate, he watched Nick move around the kitchen, efficient, grounded, utterly at ease in his body. Nick had grown into his Astraform in a way Shawn hadn't. Vulture wings carried a reputation. Death, omen, decay. People forgot they were also symbols of patience, endurance, and survival. Nick had learned early how to make himself non-threatening, how to fold his wings away and stand solid and calm so others wouldn't flinch. Shawn wondered sometimes how much of that was habit and how much was armor. I hide my wings, Shawn thought. He hides everything else. The thought made his chest ache. He grabbed his bag and headed for the door. Shawn, Nick called. He turned. Nick's gaze was soft, searching. Don't push yourself. I won't. Another lie. Shawn stepped into the hallway, the door clicking shut behind him. As he walked toward campus, he passed people with visible Astraforms, ears flicking openly, tails swaying, feathers catching the sunlight. The younger ones were bold, fresh from the binding, still drunk on the novelty of control. He remembered that feeling, and how quickly it faded. Secrecy was learned. It was taught by stares that lingered too long, by whispers, by professors who paused mid-lecture when wings rustled accidentally, by love that stayed unspoken because it felt too dangerous to reveal. I learned how to hide my wings, Shawn thought bitterly. I never learned how to stop wanting to open them, especially around Nick, especially when Nick stood too close, especially when his voice softened or his hand brushed Shawn's shoulder in passing. Shawn had loved him for 10 years. 10 quiet, careful, suffocating years. And every day, his Astraform stayed obedient. But his heart had never learned the binding. Chapter 2. The space between shared rooms. Living with Nick meant learning the shape of silence. Not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that settled in naturally, like a well-worn blanket, soft, familiar, and heavy in its own way. Shawn learned Nick's routines without meaning to. The way he woke early, even on days he didn't have to. The way he moved through the apartment quietly, as if respecting invisible boundaries. The way he always checked the weather before leaving, even though his wings stayed hidden beneath tailored clothes. That morning was no different. Shawn lay awake on the couch, pretending to read through engineering notes he had memorized days ago. His wings were folded tight against his back, feathers itching faintly beneath his shirt. From the kitchen came the low, steady sounds of life continuing, water running, a pan heating, the clink of a mug set down too carefully. Nick hummed, barely audible. Shawn's breath caught. Nick rarely hummed. It was an old habit, Shawn knew. Something he did when his thoughts drifted elsewhere. What were you thinking about? Shawn wondered, immediately hating himself for it. Nick stepped into the living room, carrying 2 plates. "You're up early," he said. Shawn blinked. Couldn't sleep. Nick studied him for a second too long. "Your wings restless?" Shawn hesitated, then nodded. Nick set 1 plate down and gestured toward the window. "You can open them. Curtains are closed." Shawn's heart skipped. It wasn't permission he needed. It was reassurance. Slowly, he let go. Golden feathers unfurled with a soft rustle, wings stretching wide enough to brush the air around them. The relief was immediate, a deep exhale he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Nick looked away politely, but not before Shawn caught the way his gaze lingered. "Don't imagine things," Shawn told himself. Nick's own wings stayed hidden, as they almost always did. Vulture wings weren't something he revealed lightly, not even at home. Shawn wondered if that was intentional. They ate together in comfortable quiet. Nick pushed a glass of water closer to Shawn. "Drink." "I am." Nick raised an eyebrow. Shawn sighed and drank more. Caretaking came naturally to Nick. He never hovered, never fussed, but his attention was constant, subtle, unyielding. Shawn loved him for it, and resented it, because love like this, one-sided and unspoken, felt dangerous. After breakfast, Shawn gathered his things. "I'll be late tonight," he said. "Group project." Nick nodded. "Text me when you're done." "I'm not a kid," Shawn said automatically. Nick's lips twitched. "I know." The words lingered. "Do you?" Shawn thought. That evening, Shawn returned exhausted, head pounding faintly, the familiar warning signs of pushing too hard. He kicked off his shoes and slumped onto the couch. Nick noticed immediately. "You skipped dinner," Nick said, not accusing, observing. Shawn groaned. "I forgot." Nick disappeared into the kitchen. Shawn watched him go, guilt knotting his stomach. He hated how easily Nick saw through him, hated how safe it felt to be known. Nick returned with soup, setting it down in front of him. "Eat," he said, "then rest." Shawn stared at the bowl. "You don't have to." "I know," Nick interrupted gently. "I want to." That was worse. Shawn ate slowly, feeling Nick's presence like gravity beside him. Their shoulders brushed once, accidentally, harmlessly. Shawn's wings twitched. Nick stilled. For a moment, neither of them moved. Nick's voice was quieter when he spoke. "You all right?" "Yeah," Shawn whispered. "Just tired." Nick nodded, but his hand hovered, hesitating, before resting briefly on Shawn's shoulder. It was nothing, It was everything. The warmth lingered long after Nick pulled away. Later, as Shawn lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he listened to Nick move around the apartment, closing doors, checking lights. This is what love looks like when it has nowhere to go, Shawn thought. Not dramatic, not loud, just constant, careful, unseen. He turned onto his side, wings shifting restlessly beneath the covers. If I say something, he thought, heart aching, I could lose this. And that was what kept him silent. Chapter 3. When the body tells the truth. Shawn knew he was getting sick before the fever arrived. It always started the same way. A heaviness behind the eyes, a dull ache settling into his joints. His wings, usually obedient, growing restless beneath his skin, feathers itching like they wanted to tear free. By the time he made it back to the apartment that night, the world felt slightly out of focus. The door clicked shut behind him. Shawn. Nick's voice came instantly. Too fast. Shawn barely had time to kick off his shoes before his knees buckled. Nick was there in a second, arms catching him before he hit the floor. Hey, easy, Nick said, steady but sharp with concern. You're burning up. I'm fine, Shawn muttered weakly, even as his body betrayed him. Nick didn't argue. He never did when Shawn was like this. He guided him to the couch, one hand firm at Shawn's back, the other already reaching for the blanket draped over the armrest. Shawn's wings twitched involuntarily as the fabric brushed them, feathers slipping free despite his control. Nick froze for half a second. Then, gently, he adjusted the blanket to accommodate them. Did you eat? Nick asked. Shawn shook his head. Nick exhaled slowly through his nose. I told you not to push yourself. I didn't mean to, Shawn whispered. His voice sounded wrong to his own ears, thin, fragile. Nick crouched in front of him, dark eyes level with Shawn's golden ones. Up close, Shawn could see the tension in his jaw, the tight restraint in the way Nick held himself together. Stay here, Nick said. Don't move. Shawn didn't have the strength to argue. Nick moved efficiently, water, medicine, a thermometer. Years of practice shaped every motion. Shawn watched him through half-lidded eyes, something aching painfully in his chest that had nothing to do with illness. This is what scares me, Shawn thought. How natural this is for you. Nick pressed the thermometer into his mouth. Hold, Shawn obeyed. Nick's hand rested briefly against his forehead, grounding cool. Shawn leaned into the touch without thinking. Nick noticed. His hand stilled, but he didn't pull away. The thermometer beeped. Nick checked it and frowned. You're running a high fever. Shawn closed his eyes. For what? For being like this. Nick's brow furrowed. Don't. The word was quiet. Firm. Nick helped him drink water, then guided him carefully to his room. Shawn's wings brushed the doorframe clumsily as they entered, feathers flaring in response to the fever and exhaustion. I can't keep them in, Shawn murmured, embarrassed. You don't have to, Nick said immediately. He helped Shawn onto the bed, then paused. May I? Nick asked, gesturing to his wings. Shawn nodded. Nick adjusted them gently, lifting feathers with careful hands, ensuring they lay comfortably without strain. His touch was precise, respectful, nothing rushed. Shawn's breath caught. Nick had always been careful like this. Too careful. When Nick finally pulled back, Shawn grabbed his wrist weakly. Nick looked at him. Why are you so good to me? Shawn asked, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Fever loosened his restraint, blurred the walls he'd spent years building. Nick didn't answer right away. He sat on the edge of the bed. Because you matter. The simplicity of it hurt. Tears burned behind Shawn's eyes. You say that like it's nothing. Nick's jaw tightened. I'm not nothing, Shawn whispered. I'm not a responsibility. I'm not your job. I know, Nick said softly. Then why does it feel like that's all I am to you? The room went very still. Nick's wings stirred beneath his shirt, just once. Attell, I watch you grow, Nick said carefully. I don't want to cross a line I can't uncross. Shawn laughed weakly. I crossed it years ago. The words hung between them. Nick stood abruptly. You need rest. Shawn turned his face away, tears finally spilling onto the pillow. Don't leave, he whispered. Nick froze at the door. After a moment, he returned, sitting beside the bed again. I'm here, Nick said quietly. I'm not going anywhere. Shawn clutched the blanket, wings trembling. Then why does it feel like I'm alone in this? Nick stayed until Shawn's breathing evened out, until the fever eased slightly under the medication. He brushed damp hair from Shawn's forehead with careful fingers. Watching him sleep, Nick felt something inside his chest strain dangerously against years of restraint. This isn't just care, he realized, unsettled. This is fear. Fear of losing him. Fear of wanting more. Nick remained there long into the night, wings folded tight, heart restless. And for the first time, he wondered how much longer either of them could endure pretending this was only kindness. Chapter 4. The Shape of Almost. Shawn woke slowly. Not fully, just enough to register warmth. A steady presence beside him. The faint sound of breathing that wasn't his own. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Then he felt it. A hand resting on the edge of the mattress. Close enough that if he shifted even an inch, their fingers would touch. Neek. Shawn kept his eyes closed. If he didn't move, maybe the moment wouldn't break. His fever had eased, leaving behind that fragile, hollow clarity that came after sickness, when emotions felt too big for the body holding them. His wings were half spread, feathers loose and soft against the sheets. He hadn't bothered pulling them in before falling asleep. He hadn't had the strength. He felt Nick notice. Not with words, with stillness. Nick shifted slightly in the chair beside the bed. The movement was careful, restrained, like someone afraid of waking something dangerous. You're awake, Nick said quietly. Shawn opened his eyes. Nick looked tired, dark circles beneath his eyes. Shirt wrinkled, hair unstyled. He hadn't gone to work. That alone made Shawn's chest ache. You stayed, Shawn murmured. Nick nodded once. You were running hot most of the night. Oh, Shawn said softly. So that's why you look like that. He pushed himself up slightly, then winced. Nick was there instantly, one hand at Shawn's shoulder, steadying him. Don't, Nick said. You're not fully recovered. The hand stayed. Too long. Shawn could feel the warmth of it, even through the fabric of his shirt. His wings responded instinctively, feathers shivering, opening a little wider. Nick noticed. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry, Shawn whispered, trying to pull his wings in. Don't, Nick repeated, this time gentler. It's fine. He didn't move his hand away. The room felt smaller suddenly. Heavier. Shawn swallowed. You always say that. Nick's gaze flicked to his face. Say what? That it's fine. That you're okay with things you shouldn't have to be okay with. Nick's fingers flexed slightly at Shawn's shoulder. You're not a burden, Nick said. That's not what I meant, Shawn replied. His voice trembled despite himself. I meant, why do you let me lean on you like this? Nick inhaled slowly. Because if I don't, I'm afraid of what I'll want. But he didn't say that. Instead, he said, because you need someone. Shawn laughed quietly, humorless. That's not an answer. Nick looked away. The silence stretched. Shawn shifted again, this time deliberately. His shoulder brushed Nick's chest. The contact was light, accidental enough to deny, intentional enough to feel. Nick froze. Shawn, he warned softly. Shawn looked up at him, golden eyes bright with unshed emotion. I'm not 12 anymore. Nick's breath stuttered. I know, he said. That's the problem. Shawn reached out. Slowly, his fingers closed around Nick's wrist, the same wrist he'd grabbed before, days ago, when words had failed him. Nick didn't pull away. I don't want you to take care of me, Shawn said quietly. I want you to see me. Nick's wings stirred beneath his shirt. Just once. A reflex he couldn't hide. Shawn noticed. His breath caught. You feel it too, Shawn whispered. Don't you? Nick closed his eyes. When he opened them, something in his gaze had changed. Less guarded, more afraid. Yes, Nick admitted. The word fell heavy between them. Shawn leaned closer. Not touching yet. Just close enough that Nick could feel his warmth, smell the faint trace of medicine and soap. If we don't stop pretending, Shawn said softly, this is going to hurt anyway. Nick's restraint cracked. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead gently against Shawn's. Just that. Nothing more. But it was enough. Chapter 5. When he finally opened his wings. The night settled slowly. City lights bled through the apartment windows, painting the walls in gold and shadow. The hum of traffic below softened into something distant, almost soothing. Shawn stood just inside the doorway, backpack still slung over one shoulder. Nick hadn't turned around yet. He was standing by the window, and his wings were out. Fully. Shawn stopped breathing. Nick's vulture wings stretched wide, dark feathers catching the dim light like polished obsidian. They filled the space behind him, vast, powerful, unmistakably real. Not restrained, not hidden. Open in a way Shawn had only ever seen once before, years ago, when fear had forced them into the air. Now, there was no fear, only quiet. Nick didn't face him right away. His voice carried low and steady, but there was something raw beneath it. Did you eat? Shawn swallowed. Yeah. A pause. You're late. Nick said. I had a project meeting. Another pause. The wings shifted slightly. That small movement sent a shiver through Shawn's spine. Nick turned then. His dark eyes found Shawn instantly, sharp and searching. For a brief, terrifying second, Shawn wondered if Nick would pretend nothing was different. But Nick didn't fold his wings away. He stayed exactly as he was. Sit, Nick said quietly. Shawn obeyed, perching stiffly on the edge of the couch. His wings twitched beneath his jacket, restless, anxious, responding to the storm in his chest. Nick crossed the room slowly. Each step felt deliberate. Heavy. What's wrong? Nick asked. Shawn laughed once, breathless and bitter. You really have to ask? Nick stopped in front of him. Yes, he said. Ido. Shawn clenched his hands together. His heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I can't do this anymore, he said. Pretending. Waiting. Hoping you'll look at me and see something other than responsibility. Nick's wings tensed. Shawn, I've liked you since I was 12, Shawn said, the words finally spilling free. Since you caught me. Since you flew in like I mattered. His voice shook, but he didn't stop. I told myself it was just gratitude, then admiration, then something I'd grow out of. He looked up, eyes bright. I didn't. The room felt too small. Nick's wings folded in halfway, then flared again, unsettled, conflicted. Say something, Shawn whispered. Please. Nick turned away sharply. This isn't a good time, he said, voice strained. Shawn stood abruptly. There's never a good time. Silence crashed down between them. Nick exhaled slowly. When he turned back, something in his expression had cracked open. Fear, frustration, longing all tangled together. I'm scared, Nick admitted. I watched you grow up. I told myself I was protecting you. Shawn stepped closer. You were protecting yourself. Nick flinched. Shawn reached out, fingers trembling as they closed around Nick's wrist. I don't want to be your kid, Shawn said quietly. Or your responsibility. I'm old enough to know what I want. Nick looked down at him, at how tall he'd grown, at the certainty in his eyes, at the wings pressing urgently against his back. What if I hurt you? Nick asked. Shawn didn't hesitate. You already are. That did it. Nick's restraint collapsed. His wings unfurled fully, sweeping outward in a rush of air that stirred the room. Feathers brushed the walls, the couch. Shawn himself, dark, overwhelming, breathtaking. Shawn's own wings burst free in response, golden feathers flaring instinctively. They stood there, framed by wings, breath shallow, hearts racing. Nick reached up, cupping Shawn's face. Careful, reverent. I don't see you as a kid, Nick said hoarsely. I just didn't know how to want you without crossing everything I believed in. Shawn leaned into his touch. Then cross it with me, he whispered. Their lips met, soft at first, testing, trembling with everything unsaid. Nick kissed him like he was afraid Shawn would disappear if he didn't. Shawn kissed him like he'd been waiting his entire life. Wings folded around them, enclosing them in shadow and warmth. The rest of the night blurred into closeness and quiet certainty. Words murmured between breaths, touches learning, walls finally lowered. When the world narrowed to just them, Nick pressed his forehead to Shawn's. This changes things, he said. Shawn smiled, tears slipping free. I hope so. The lights dimmed. Wings rustled. And for the first time, neither of them pulled away. Chapter 6. The morning he didn't leave. Shawn woke to light. Not the harsh kind. No alarms, No sudden noise, but the soft spill of morning sun filtering through the curtains, warm against his face. For one fragile moment, he didn't move. He listened. The city breathed quietly outside the window. Somewhere below, a car passed. A bird cried out, distant and free. Then he noticed what was missing. The weight beside him. His heart stuttered. Shawn's eyes opened fully. The bed was empty. The sheets beside him were rumpled, still warm, but unmistakably vacant. Nick's scent lingered faintly, grounding and familiar, which somehow made the emptiness worse. Of course, Shawn thought, dread blooming fast and sharp. Of course he left. His wings reacted before he could stop them, ruffling sharply, feathers scraping against the sheets in agitation. He sat up, chest tight, breath shallow. You were impulsive, emotional, childish, a cruel voice whispered. He gave in. That's all. Shawn pressed the heel of his hand to his sternum, trying to steady himself. It meant everything to me, he thought helplessly. What if it only meant a moment to him? He swung his legs over the side of the bed, wings still unsettled, feathers bristling despite his control. That was when he heard it. Movement. Soft footsteps. The faint clink of ceramic. The bedroom door opened. Nick stood there. Shawn froze. Nick was dressed simply, loose shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair still damp from a shower. In his hands was a tray, steam curling gently upward from a mug and a covered bowl. And his wings were out, not fully spread, but visible, relaxed, unhidden. Black feathers caught the sunlight, each one edged in quiet sheen, stark against the white of the sheets and walls. They weren't defensive. They weren't restrained. They were there. Nick paused when he saw Shawn, sitting up, wings half raised like he was ready to flee. Their eyes met. Something flickered across Nick's face. Recognition. Understanding. Oh, Nick said softly. Hey. Shawn swallowed. I thought you left. Nick's brow creased immediately. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and set the tray down on the bedside table. No, he said firmly. I went to make breakfast. Shawn let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. It came out shaky, uneven. Nick sat on the edge of the bed. His wing brushed Shawn's arm accidentally. Neither of them moved away. I didn't want you to wake up alone, Nick continued quietly. But I had to be at work early today. Shawn nodded, throat tight. I know, Nick said. He reached out without hesitation, fingers threading gently through Shawn's hair, grounding him. Then, slowly, deliberately, Nick leaned in and wrapped one wing around Shawn's shoulders. A full enclosure, a promise made without words. I'm here, Nick murmured. Last night wasn't a mistake. Shawn's breath broke. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead into Nick's chest, clutching the fabric of his shirt like he had years ago, when falling had been terrifying and being caught had meant everything. Nick's other wing joined the first, surrounding him completely. I should have said something sooner, Nick admitted quietly, voice low and honest. I was scared. Of crossing a line. Of changing things. Shawn's voice was muffled. I don't want things to go back. They won't, Nick said without hesitation. I promise. Shawn pulled back just enough to look at him. His eyes were wet, golden and bright. Whatever this is, Nick continued, brushing a tear away with his thumb, it's real. And I'm going to try. I don't know how to do this perfectly, but I won't disappear. Shawn nodded, emotion making it hard to speak. His wings relaxed fully for the first time that morning, folding naturally as he leaned into Nick's space. Nick smiled, small, fond, real. Eat, Nick said gently, nodding toward the tray. Then rest. I'll be back tonight. Shawn huffed a weak laugh. You're still bossy. Nick's eyes softened. Some habits stay. Before standing, Nick leaned in and pressed a quiet kiss to Shawn's forehead. Lingering, affectionate, certain. When Nick finally left, wings folding smoothly behind him, Shawn remained seated on the bed, wrapped in warmth and sunlight. For the first time in years, the ache in his chest eased. Chapter 7. Learning what to hold and how. Nick noticed the change before Shawn did. It wasn't dramatic at first. Just small things. The way Shawn walked a little closer in public. The way his gaze tracked Nick without conscious thought. The way his wings, usually disciplined, folded tight, tensed whenever someone stood too near. Possessiveness, Nick knew, wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was instinct catching up to emotion. They were still learning each other in this new shape. No longer caretaker and dependent, no longer undefined. Something chosen, something fragile. Nick moved through the world the way he always had, calm, measured, composed. His Astraform stayed hidden beneath tailored suits and practiced restraint. Years of experience had taught him that visibility invited misunderstanding. Shawn hadn't learned that lesson yet. Or maybe he was unlearning it. They were in the plaza outside Nick's company when it happened. The building rose sleek and glassy behind them, reflecting the late afternoon sun. Employees moved in clusters, laughter and conversation spilling easily into the open air. Nick had just finished a brief meeting. Shawn had stopped by, waiting near the fountain with his bag slung over one shoulder, wings carefully folded beneath his jacket. Nick stepped closer, reaching out automatically to brush Shawn's knuckles. A small thing, unremarkable, except someone noticed. A coworker, owl-type from the way his eyes caught the light, paused nearby, gaze lingering a second too long on Nick. Curious, appraising. Shawn felt it immediately. The shift. The tension curled low in his chest, sharp and territorial. His Astraform responded before his thoughts could catch up, muscles tightening, feathers itching beneath his skin. Mine, something instinctual whispered. Nick turned slightly, aware now of Shawn's change in posture. Shawn, he murmured quiet. Easy. Too late. Golden wings burst free. Not violent, but deliberate. They unfurled wide and strong, catching the sunlight, casting a clear shadow as Shawn stepped in close behind Nick. One wing curved forward, protective and unmistakable, hovering just behind Nick's shoulder, an avian barrier that said claimed without a single word. The plaza stilled. Conversations faltered. Nick froze, not from fear, from surprise. He could feel the heat of Shawn's wings at his back, the steady thrum of his heartbeat. Shawn's presence was solid, possessive, unashamed. The coworker looked away immediately. Nick exhaled slowly. Shawn, Nick said again carefully. Your wings. Shawn blinked, suddenly aware of where he was. Public. Open. Dozens of eyes. His breath caught. His voice wavered. I didn't mean. Nick turned gently, placing a hand on Shawn's forearm. Not forceful. Grounding. It's all right, Nick said. But let's step aside. They moved toward a quieter edge of the plaza. Shawn folded his wings slowly, embarrassment flushing through him as murmurs resumed behind them. Nick waited until they were alone before speaking. You weren't wrong for feeling that, Nick said calmly. Shawn stared at the ground. It felt wrong, like I was marking you. Nick considered that. Yes, he said simply. It did. Shawn's chest tightened. I don't want to cage you. Nick lifted Shawn's chin gently, forcing him to meet his gaze. And I don't want you afraid of what you feel, Nick said. But we need to choose when instinct leads and when it follows. Shawn swallowed. I've never had to think about it before. I know, Nick replied softly. You spent years hiding. Now everything feels louder. Shawn laughed weakly. I don't like the idea of people looking at you and thinking they can. Nick smiled faintly. They always will. That surprised Shawn. Nick continued, but wanting me doesn't mean you own me. And loving you doesn't mean I disappear into your shadow. Shawn nodded slowly, shame and understanding settling together. I don't want to scare you, Shawn said quietly. Nick brushed his thumb over Shawn's knuckles. You didn't. A pause. Then, softer, I just want us to last. Shawn's wings shifted beneath his jacket, not flaring this time, but settling. I'll try, Shawn said. Nick smiled, small, proud. They stood there a moment longer, the city moving around them again. Adjustment wasn't easy, but neither of them was walking away. And that was the difference. Epilogue, where wings come to rest. Morning arrived quietly. Sunlight spilled through the apartment windows in soft gold ribbons, warming the sheets, catching dust in the air like drifting stars. Outside, the city stirred. Distant traffic, a faint hum of life beginning again. Shawn woke first before Nick for the first time. He lay still for a moment, listening to Nick's breathing beside him, deep, steady, real. Nick slept on his back, one arm thrown loosely above his head, his black wings unfurled in sleep without restraint. In the daylight, they weren't ominous or severe. They were beautiful. The dark feathers caught the sun in subtle shades. Charcoal, obsidian, hints of blue. Strong, protective, at rest. Shawn's chest tightened with something warm and overwhelming. He's here, Shawn thought. He stayed. Carefully, Shawn shifted, golden wings stretching just enough to drape over Nick's side. The contrast was striking, sun-bright gold against night-dark feathers. Light and shadow fitting together as if they always had. Nick stirred. One eye opened. "You're staring," he murmured, voice still rough with sleep. Shawn smiled. "Can you blame me?" Nick huffed a quiet laugh and turned toward him, wings rustling softly as he pulled Shawn closer. "You look like you're about to fly away." "I don't want to," Shawn said honestly. Nick studied him for a long moment, really looked at him. Not the boy who once cried in a tree. Not the responsibility he carried for years. But the man in his arms. "Good," Nick said softly. "Neither do I." They stayed like that for a while, sunlight creeping higher, the world waiting patiently for them to move. Eventually they did. Breakfast was simple: burnt toast, oversweetened coffee, shared laughter. Shawn perched on the counter, wings half open, utterly unbothered by visibility in their own space. Nick moved around him with ease, occasionally brushing past just a touch. Later, they stepped out onto the balcony. The sky was impossibly blue. Shawn leaned against the railing, wings spreading wide as the sun caught every feather. Nick joined him, his own wings unfolding slowly, deliberately, no longer hidden even here, even now. For the first time, they stood side by side, wings open to the light. No fear, no hesitation. Nick reached for Shawn's hand, threading their fingers together. "You know," Nick said, thoughtful, "Astraform scholars say our wings show our truest selves." Shawn glanced at him. "Then what does this say about us?" Nick smiled, soft, certain. "That we chose each other." Shawn squeezed his hand, possessiveness now quiet, secure. "I used to think loving you meant wanting to be held." Nick leaned in, pressing a kiss to Shawn's temple. "And now?" Shawn smiled, golden eyes bright. "Now I know it means knowing when to let you stand beside me." Nick chuckled. "You've grown. Don't sound so surprised." They laughed together, wings brushing, feathers catching sunlight as if the sky itself approved. Below them, the city moved on. Above them, the open sky waited. And between them, love, no longer hidden, no longer uncertain, just steady, just chosen. Two winged souls, no longer flying alone. And this time, they weren't afraid to stay. This was Moonlit Inc. BL. Thank you for listening. Good night.